Crushgasm, the podcast dedicated to the highs and lows of crushes. From their first to their worst, we're going to cover them all with a cascade of characters, including our guest today, a 35-year-old woman who is still highly upset her mom tossed her talk girl back in the day. Me. Yes, I'm back once more before the end of the year to talk about holiday song crushes. So as RuPaul always says, let the music play. But first off, if you follow Crushgasm on Twitter or have joined the I Did Not Make These Rankings podcast network Facebook group, then you're already tuned into our Christmas-themed holiday fantasy draft this week. If not, you can always listen to that episode via Masturbators when it drops on all podcast platforms. And I'm not the hugest fan of holiday music because in preparing for the draft, I realized that we kind of have like only a dozen Christmas songs and then a billion covers of said dozen Christmas songs. However, sometimes we get a joint that goes above and beyond, like Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You, which you won't find on my list because it's a given. Everybody loves that freaking song. It's become the only modern day pop song that feels as Christmas as Frosty, Rudolph, and the Grinch. So I didn't want to talk or write about it too much because again, it's obviously a favorite. So let's get to a handful that are getting some shine this week other than Mariah. Now, I just mentioned Rudolph, and while it's as much a staple as Mariah Carey's #1 hit, I still wanted to give this song some love because it's not just the song I enjoy, but the movie it came from. Girl, I've sang the version I've listened to since I was a kid in a pile of wrapping paper on Christmas morning because Rudolph is one of my all-time favorite movies, probably #2 just after Drop Dead Fred. And I mentioned this last year as well. You know, Rudolph is a punk rock story with outcasts and about straying from the expected with Hermie wanting to be a dentist instead of an elf. And I feel that did lay a foundation for me to wind up this little emo kid years down the line. And speaking of emo, the next song on my list is by none other than Fall Out Boy. And while I haven't listened to that band in probably damn near a decade, I can't deny my favorites by them, and You'll Shoot Your Eye Out is definitely one of those favorites. I mean, it's hard to deny anything Patrick Stump puts his mumbled stamp on. Plus, how can my little cold heart not love the line, Merry Christmas, I could care less. But even my cold heart warms when it comes to movies like Home Alone. And while that has so much to do with my 90s icon crush Macaulay Culkin, it's in part to what John Williams was able to do with Somewhere in My Memory. Like, he didn't have to go that hard, but he did just that. But it's not shocking given Williams has scored most of the biggest films in history, from Star Wars to Jaws to Harry Potter. So yeah, the man knows what he's doing and is able to capture the pure emotion of a scene like a freaking boss. So yeah, it's really hard not to get both nostalgic and ready for the holidays whenever Somewhere in My Memory plays. And it's basic to say, but nostalgia will get you far with me, and that's why I hold anything Alvin and the Chipmunks close to my heart. I watch the show religiously, wore out the VHS tape of the movie, and I'm not ashamed to say that I saw 3 out of the 4 newer movies in theaters. 2 of those times were actually with my family around the holidays, my late grandma's treat. So part of the reason I love Christmas time is here is because I associate it with watching the show and listening to that song with my mom growing up, because she too, big fan. But I also love like the recent memories I have with the Chipmunks in the holidays, those theater trips with my grandma, my mom, and my brother, because we didn't do that too often once we got older. And I'll stay animated and just say that Mr. Hanky the Christmas Pooh is the final song I'll be speaking about on this episode. And if you don't know, it's from South Park, and it's literally a piece of poop with a little Santa hat on, and I love him. This is another song I associate with my family. We watched the show since season 1 after catching the Starvin' Marvin episode, and all 3 of us were immediately hooked. My mom had a handful of Cartman dolls, I had Kyle ones, and my brother had a stuffed Mr. Hanky that he took to a show and tell once. We still laugh about that to this day, and it's been years. So that memory teamed with just absolutely loving Mr. Hanky and his family, most of all his alcoholic wife Autumn. I couldn't make a holiday song list without this weird ass song. That's the 5 I'm sharing about, but there are most definitely a handful more, and the rest of the list will be on crushgasmpodcast.com anytime after this, so it's probably there now. So if you're watching this on YouTube, click the link below. But if you're just listening, the link's it's somewhere. It's probably below. It's in the little description. Not that hard to find. But you can always just go to the Google and type in crushgasmpodcast.com and whoop, there it is. Before I head out and watch Home Alone 2 for the billionth time, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me talk about some of my holiday song crushes. And just thank you for listening all throughout the year to some other crush tales. We've had after school crushes, Nickelodeon crushes, crushes on musicians. We've had it all, and we'll have so much more in the new year as we pay homage to the 90s, as well as have new guests come through with their iconic crushes and their everyday crushes from places like the grocery store, which I'm sure we've all had. And until then, you can find all of Crushgasm's information below. And until next time, as always, keep crushing it.